we do often talk about the here and now with Manchester United and the trials and tribulations, and it can get slightly depressing, especially at the moment, being a Manchester United fan. But obviously, we've been United fans for decades, and we've seen so many great players and terrible players come through the club. We all know that. But when we're talking about like hero status, the players that got you into supporting Manchester United, mate.
Yeah.
These are the players that I feel like we don't talk about enough. So I think we're going to talk about the heroes of Manchester United from past and present, and just talk about the players that keep us loving Manchester United. So to kick us off, who have you got? Because I know you want to read out a list, but I'm not going to allow it. So
Yeah.
it's one. We're going to stick to the rules on this one. So you get one.
Yeah.
You get one pick, mate.
No,
You get one pick this week.
it's one pick, and I think it's a big pick. He's obviously a United legend. He's a Cantona. Me.
Oh, it's mine as
Yeah.
well, mate. It's mine as
Is
well.
it really?
But do
Right,
you know
yeah.
what? Do you know what though? I didn't want to tell you, and I didn't want you to tell me because I kind of had a feeling that it would be Cantona, and I thought we'd
Yeah.
both end up talking about it. So it doesn't matter, like if it's two separate ones. Oh no, you've stolen mine. It's difficult to
Yeah.
do that. But
No,
Cantona,
it's
top of the list. But why for you? Why for you?
As a kid, my dad used to always take, because I'm from Bury, my dad used to always take me to Bury, and he used to watch Bury at Gig Lane, live near Gig Lane, and the fans used to do my head in whinging. This I might try and cut the story down. He used to do my head in. Just did. My uncle was a United fan, and he said to me, I think I must have been eight or nine or something like that. He said, "I'll take you to Old Trafford." And I was like, really? Oh, right, okay. Never, because I've only ever been to that. There were 4,000 or some whinging people. And we went to Old Trafford, and he stood in the Stretford end, and cancer. And I was like, what is this? This is absolutely brilliant. And and since then, like whenever my dad took me back to Gig Lane, I was like, oh, this is garbage. So from then on, I followed United. And the signing of Cantona, obviously, as a United fan, it seemed to have spur us on, didn't it? But his performances when he won games on his own are what I remember. Him being the main man, he's scoring important goals, turning up a Crystal Palace goal. There was a goal his performance at Newcastle. Those kind of things. There wasn't really players doing that. And that seems his goal in a cup final against Liverpool. These moments as a kid, especially as 8, 9, 10, going up to 13, they influence you. And he was the first name he had on the back of my shirt. I still wear it now, as you've seen on the podcast. I still got a Cantona shirt on the back. And when I wear that and I go to the game, and when you wear that, you watch games in the pub and things like that, fellas come up to you, 60-year-old, 70-year-old, oh, Cantona. And we still all reminisce about Cantona. And we still all think of him as a club legend. So, yeah, when you say club legend, first name, first person I thought of, collar up, Cantona. Yeah.
I think that's the big thing. I think from our era, so 80s to now, obviously we were super young in the 80s. But during the 90s, like that early 90s football, Premier League era, when it was kicking off, you're right, there weren't that many superstar players that were as big as Eric Cantona. And do you know what the weird thing is? Like my fascination with Cantona came before he'd even gone to Manchester United, because he was at Sheffield Wednesday?
He had trials at Sheffield Wednesday. He had a trial at Sheffield Wednesday, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. And weirdly, and I might have remembered this wrong, but weirdly, I think he was in like one of the early Sensible Soccers as like a Sheffield Wednesday player. I think so. I might be wrong. I might have remembered it.
Right.
But I did have this fascination because my uncle at the time was like talking about this, Cantona, and they've signed this, this French lad to come over. He's really good. And then I watched a couple of games when he was at Leeds, and I was like, yeah, he's good, this lad. And then it was like, he's going to United, and that just blew my mind. And obviously, I was already following his career from his trials at Sheffield Wednesday to playing for Manchester United. And as you say, collar up, didn't matter who you supported. Everyone in the playground or everyone that was playing football, collar up on their shirts, because everyone wanted to emulate him. And
Yeah.
he was like a really imposing figure as well, because he wasn't the fastest, but barrel chested. Yeah.
Aura. Didn't he?
But
He had aura.
100%
Nathan.
aura. The
Uh,
kids talk
yeah.
about it today. They don't know. They do
No.
not know. When we're
Yeah.
talking aura, Cantona was aura. That goal when he scored it, was it
Sunderland. Oh,
Sunderland?
Middlesbrough, Sunderland. The Dink.
Yeah. Come on, you find who it was against while
No.
I'm riffing, but I can't remember who it was. Red and white kit, obviously. But that goal and the way that he turned around, like, his collar's already up and he's just taking it in like a gladiator at the Colosseum. He's just felled his opponent and he's looking around like,
Yeah.
yes,
I'm here.
here I am.
I'm here.
Here
Yeah.
I am.
Sunderland. It
Don't
was
worry,
Sunderland.
Sunderland.
I thought it was.
Here I am. I'll sort this. And it was, if you've not seen that goal, then you need to go and dig it out and go and check it out, because that was unreal. But he had that soft touch about him with his skills, but he's also a madman as well. So
Yeah.
he didn't
Yeah.
mind getting into the tackles. There's a really good video, a really good highlights or lowlights if you're a Wimbledon fan. But Vinnie Jones and all of that lot just booting United players, trying to boot them off the pitch. And this was before VAR, obviously. This was when you could get away with, kicking a player into the stands if you really wanted to. Some of the tackles that was going in on Cantona, unreal. And the rest of them as well. But he every single time just picked himself up, got on with it. Picked himself up, got on with it. No rolling around on the floor, which he had every right to do, by the way, because some of them were really heavy challenges. Straight back into it. Straight back in. And I think Manchester United we haven't really had many players like that. And I don't think there are too many players like Eric Cantona that have ever been around in world football. I think probably the closest that you would get in our era since we've been alive, probably looking at someone like an Ibrahimovic, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
You think of aura. Henry had it, didn't he? He had that.
Not the same in terms of Henry, fantastic player, but he's not in terms of the way that he held himself and things like that. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Zlatan's
pick Henry.
probably perfect.
If you was getting into a scrap outside of Wetherspoons, you wouldn't pick Henry, would you? But you would be behind Eric.
Have his
because
gloves on.
He'd already be swinging. Exactly. And he's snood.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
which it looks like you've got on at the moment, mate, which is interesting.
It's cold in
snood.
Manchester, mate. Still soaking
I
wet
know.
from Saturday.
Fair. But no, in terms of
legend.
exactly. And I guess hero status, it just has to be. Maybe this section will be called the Cantona's Heroes. The Eric Cantona Award, because it does. We do often forget, and it is worth remembering why we fell in love with football in the first place. We do this podcast not so that we can moan. I know that that's most of it at the moment. It's cathartic to get it out there, but we do need to remember that these players that we watched when we were growing up, these are the reasons why we fell in love with football. It's one of the reasons why I'm going off on a slight tangent here, but it's one of the reasons why I love watching Bruno Fernandes play. We didn't say this before in the earlier section, but when he took a few players on, did he sit down Chalobah? He sat a player down when he had that little run in the second half, and he was getting a bit nervy, and Fernandes sat him down and had a shot from about 25 yards or 20 yards, and he went straight to the Stretford end, and he was like, "Come on!" Trying to let's go, geeing the crowd up. It's not the same as Cantona, but when you talk about heroes of Manchester United and players that you love watching, Bruno's worth the entrance fee. But I was going to ask you a question, actually, because I knew you was going to pick Cantona. I was going to ask you a question. Who of most modern day Manchester United players do you think emulates Eric Cantona? Who has that type of the makeup, the DNA of Eric Cantona closest? And I know he's one of a kind, but I thought I'd put you on the spot and ask for the closest to it.
The closest I can think of.
Yeah.
That dragged the team along. Modern day. Do you mean it's in the team now or just
in the team now? Yeah, let's say in the team now. Yeah.
There's only really Bruno, isn't there? You have to put Bruno in that category. I was thinking Wayne Rooney is what I was thinking. The only person who's got close to that kind of.
I think if
That's
we're
who I was
dipping
thinking.
back, if we're going
Yeah,
back, I'd say, yeah,
yeah.
Rooney's
There's
probably got it as well. But Zlatan
but
obviously
yeah,
had a stint
in the
at
squad
Manchester
now, I
United.
think there's only really Bruno who's got that influence that I am Manchester United about him.
Can I offer you another one? And I know it's only a few
For sure.
games in, but Matthias
Yeah.
Cunha.
Right, okay.
Simply because I think he does have that flair about him, and he does have that, like, the skill, and he can pick the ball up, and he can take on anyone and everyone. Like, he's got the entire team on his back. It was unfortunate that he got injured, and it kind of curtailed that, because I would have liked to have seen him start in those games.
Yeah.
But he's also, he's not afraid to hand out a three-piece combo to was it Bournemouth players?
He's got a switch in him, hasn't
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's what Cantona had as well. Everyone knows about him diving
he? Rooney.
into the into the into the fans and flying kicking that lad, you know, and then
Had
landing
it
3
coming.
punches on him. Yeah,
Yeah, well,
why not?
he had it coming, didn't he? Yeah, do it
He did
again.
that. He
But,
did have it coming.
the shame I'd say about Cantona, Nate, before we wrap it up, is I feel like the press hounded him out. About, he shouldn't have retired that early, but the English press
Uh,
did what they
I
did
think
best, and
I think you're right. I think you're right to a certain extent, but I've got to say, I don't think it was down to that. I think he just couldn't be bothered with football anymore. I don't think it. Honestly, there's some players. That just play the game, and you can tell they're just going through the motions. They're really good at it, but they don't. They're not interested in it. I think Ben White was another one for like Arsenal. Like he says something about, like, he doesn't watch football. I'm not putting him on the same pedestal as Eric Cantona, but I'm saying, like,
yeah,
it's a job. And people can't, us watching at home, like watching or going to the stadium and watching them, we can't understand that. We don't know how you can just switch off and not watch any of the football afterwards. But that's what apparently Ben White, there's a few of them that just did not or do not watch any more football when they finished. And Paul Scholes and I don't know if you've listened to their new podcast, The Good, the Bad, and the
Nicky
Football.
Butt. I
Yeah, with
haven't
Nicky
yet,
Butt
but
and
it's on
Paul
my
Scholes
list.
and Paddy McGuinness. Again, they were talking about, like, Scholes, he was saying, after the game, he'd go home and he'd watch the La Liga. He said he loved watching Spanish football. And that's,
Yeah,
student of the game, wanted to see what they were all up to, and that's exactly what he used to do. But I think Cantona just got to that stage where he was just like, I just can't be bothered with this anymore. It's pointless. I've done what I've wanted to do, and that's it. And he's enjoying
yeah,
life, He's dabbled in everything. He's been an actor, he's been director, he's been an artist, he's been in was it Liam Gallagher's video? The
yeah.
King
He
of
was, wasn't it? Yeah,
something?
yeah.
Yeah. He was in his video. Like, he's just been
He retired
enjoying
at
life. So
30. At
yeah.
30, he retired, Dave. So you could have got another 4 years out of him, at least, couldn't you, with that style of play? But like you say, we're probably just a bit fed up with the whole thing, wasn't he?
Well,
Just
let me ask you this though, or I'll just kind of like put it in a different way. If he'd have stayed for those 4 years, would we still have these strong memories about him? Because
possibly not.
he may have completely faded,
Yeah.
like a lot of footballers do. Back then, they weren't these animals that could just keep going and going and going for years and years.
Mm.
It takes its toll on you playing football back then. There weren't the supplements and all the rest of it that they get now. Or the
It
little,
says here he
what is it?
lost his passion for the game and couldn't concentrate on it at the required
Yeah,
level anymore. So do you know what he probably was? He probably realised he was on a bit of a dip and thought, "No, I'll go out while I'm at the top as a legend."
exactly. Why not?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Why not?
Who are, Cantona. Love it.
It's time for another edition of the Fergie's Gum Hall of Fame. I think we need a better name for it though. I think it's a bit dry, that. I think we need a new name and a bit of audio that goes into it, but I'll sort that out at another time. The first inductee into the Fergie's Gum Hall of Fame was Eric Cantona. We did that last month, and we're going to do one every month. The last podcast of every month, we're going to celebrate one of the heroes from Manchester United, past and present, although probably mostly past. I'm not sure any of the present players get in.
Yeah.
But hot on the heels of Eric Cantona is a player that has played he had played 480 games for Manchester United, 51 goals. He once was the British transfer record at 3.75 million from Nottingham Forest. And he actually, coincidentally, took over the captain's armband from our last Hall of Fame inductee, Eric Cantona, when he retired in 1997. It is, of course, Roy Keane, who deservedly, I would say, goes into this. Have we got anyone that says that he shouldn't go in here? That's the first thing. Anyone here?
No
Anyone here?
chance.
No? Shaking their heads? No?
No
Right,
chance.
okay. That's good. That's good. So there's obvious reasons why we wanted him to go in there. I think he's much more than what current day hindsight is giving him. Everyone thinks about the Haaland tackle, tough tackling, bit of a gobby fella, and obviously the memes that come from from Sky Sports now, where's the pundit, it's his job and all that lot. But I think he was much more of a player than people let on. And I was listening to Tim Sherwood on The Good, the Bad and the Football this morning, actually. And he was talking about how he was trying to get into Keano's head when he was playing for Blackburn. He was trying to get into Keano's head, like giving him a bit of lip. And he just stared straight through him. And it was just like, all right, I literally can't get inside this person's head. And I think that type of mentality was present throughout his career. But just from a personal point of view, my favourite game that Keane played in, apart from offering out Paddy Vieira at Highbury that time, was the Juventus game when United needed to win. It was 1-1 in the Champions League in 1999. They needed to win that game. He led by example. I still remember him scoring that header, and it was just like, get the ball, run back to the halfway line, no messing about. He got bugged 9 minutes later, which meant that he actually missed the 99 final, which was awful. But he led by example. He's still going into tackles. He was still driving people on, still making the passes, still running up and down the pitch. And yeah, just one of my favourite players of all time. So I'll dip to you, Paul, because obviously me and you was the ones that kind of talked about Roy Keane in the first place to be in this Hall of Fame. What is it about him that makes him so special for you?
I put down a few keywords. I think the first one that I put down was standards. He set the standards for the whole club. You had Fergie obviously running the show behind the scenes, but the changing room has to be run by the players, and he set the standards probably on the training pitch and in the changing rooms. He's like you say, he's a leader, led by example, and he wasn't asking anybody to do anything that he wouldn't do. He'd run through brick walls to win a game of football. He put himself at risk, injury-wise, just to win a game of football. You don't see it you don't see that mentality anymore in life in general, but in football, it's very rare. It's not a surprise when people talk about Premier League teams of the decade ever that the centre midfield is Roy Keane. It's normally Roy Keane or Patrick Vieira or Gerrard, but the majority of people go with Roy Keane just because of his leadership qualities. Character, that he was just full of it, wasn't he? He was just full of all this character. One of the Mike, you talked about the favourite games there. Juventus was the obvious one. Highbury was another one. But one of the best stories of Roy Keane, when I talk about standards, is Rio Ferdinand tells it when he came from Leeds and he was in training, and Rio Ferdinand does a sideways pass, and Roy Keane says, "That won't wash here. You pass forward. We expect better for however how much money you've come from." That's the kind of standards that you need to stay at the top level. Like you say, a British transfer record, which is something that United did. He came when he was 21, which he was a young lad, but he was an animal then, and he was a box-to-box midfielder. His qualities, like you say, don't get spoken about enough. His passing was up there with some of the best. I mean, you talk about Pirlo being able to pass the ball, the likes of Seedorf being able to pass the ball. Roy Keane was as good as them passing a ball. It might not have been as flashy, the passing, but it was effective. He could spray it 30 yards. He's dipped balls into forwards, and he expected them to control it. And if you didn't control that ball, Roy Keane would give you the stare. And so he put fear into players of, no, this is where we are. We're United. we're top of our game. If you're not good enough, I'm going to tell you you're not good enough. That's what I loved. He'd call people out on the pitch. If you were in a team and you had him in your team, you knew he had your back as well. Brilliant, brilliant player. Absolutely brilliant. Yep.
I think one of the things that you kind of forget from that 99 semi-final against Juventus as well, that he was up against, I think, hang on one second, I made a note of it. He was up against Zidane. He was up against, who else was it? Davids, Deschamps, like,
Yeah.
just players that were at their peak at the time as well. You know, they're really, really good players. And I know Inzaghi got 2 goals that night, but he kept those guys quiet just by leading by example. And I think you're right. It's one of those games that, you know, will live long in the memory, obviously. But what memories do you have of him, Ahmad? Because obviously you're a little bit younger than me and Paul, but I'm sure you've got lots of strong memories of Roy Keane because you've been a Manchester United fan all your life.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. Like you said, I haven't actually watched any games for him because when I started watching United, he'd already have left. But of course, I've
How
seen
old?
him
Hang on one second. How old was you in 1999, Ahmad?
2 years. I was
We're
two.
old,
God.
Ethan. We're old.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
We're old.
I know.
I-
I was in the pub. I was in the pub watching that game.
but you guys are lucky. Like you actually experienced all that success, you know, firsthand. Unfortunately, I
Yeah.
only caught like 5-6 years of all the success we've had. But no, like I don't think you can be a United fan without actually digging deep into everything he was doing for the club. I know everything about him. Um, he epitomized what like he was Fergie but on the pitch, and that's like I think that's more than enough to say. Like he was Fergie on the pitch. The resilience, the stubbornness, the I don't know, just the hunger, and United wouldn't have won that many titles in that space of time without him being like that. Uh, I think Paul touched on the game against Arsenal in 1999. It was actually the season after we won the treble, so it was August. So it was one of the first games
Yeah.
of the season, and it was at Highbury, and Arsenal were on a very long unbeaten run. Um, it's very easy for a player and the club and the team to have that I don't know, just to let go after winning the treble, after being on such a high. But first, I think it was one of the first games of the season, and he went in, going into every tackle, showing his teammates like what they have to do. He scored 2 goals, just dominated the whole game. I mean, as a player in that team, looking at your captain doing that, there's no chance you're not gonna put in that much effort as well. And that's why we won all the titles we've had, because like season after season, win after win, league after league, he was always every single time he wants more, and he showed it. He's amazing, honestly. Like Paul said, and you said also, you touched on it, that he was technically much better than what people give him credit for, because he just could do everything. He could do everything. He controlling the ball, passing the ball, even running with the ball. Like he used to carry the ball
Yeah.
up the pitch, which is he used to do everything. Like you're never gonna find anyone like him. And the people who don't put him in their like all time Premier League 11, I don't know what they've never watched them. That's all I say.
I think that's correct as well. I think there's a lot of young people that like hear about Roy Keane, and the association is immediately Erling Haaland. So, oh yeah, he kicked Erling Haaland's dad. Do you know what I mean? That's the type of thing that they believe in now. But it was interesting, Ethan. I was listening to again Paul Scholes on the Good, the Bad, and the Football, and he was saying that it's weird these days that we talk about who's a 6 and who's an 8. Roy Keane was both. Brian Robson was both. It wasn't a case of like you have to do defending, or you have to be able to attack. You were a complete midfielder, and I think Roy Keane was probably one of the last that we've had at Manchester United that could do both, right?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's, some of the things that, when you look at Roy Keane, the things that, come to mind is, mentality and, leadership. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like, for me, with Roy Keane, a lot of people just look at, like like you're saying, the tackling and the physicality of it, but people don't really, how do I put it? People don't really look at like the leadership. There's the incident with Patrick Vieira. Also captaining a team with 7 Premier Leagues, 4 FA Cups, Champions Leagues as well, a treble-winning team. And like some of the quotes you hear from Paul Scholes, where he talks about how Roy Keane was willing to do the dirty work in midfield. If it's a matter of
Yeah.
going back to defend, he was willing to go back and defend. He was going up the pitch, he was willing to go up the pitch. Even I was listening to Rio Ferdinand talk about him, and he was talking about how brave Roy Keane was. And I think you
Yeah.
touched on about it a little bit about it, where he's not just like a lot of these days we have leaders on the pitch, that will tell you, okay, let's do this, but he's willing to go back and do it himself and show the team, like, this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
So for me, it's the leadership, his mentality. When you hear him speak, now he's a pundit. When you hear him speak, it's about with him there's no mediocrity. There's no mediocrity.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, and I think for me, that's some of the things that just come to mind. Talking about Roy Keane. Yeah.
I think the big thing was what you said there, Paul, when you was talking about the fact that he set the standards, and he wouldn't tell you to do something that he couldn't do or wouldn't try to do. And I think that was the main thing. And when we talk about leaders on the pitch at Manchester United now, and obviously fans of a certain age, I'm guessing me and Paul are in this bracket, but you look at someone like Bruno, who's a great player. He's played 300. Is it 300 games for Manchester United now? I think that was at the weekend. He's done 300 games for Manchester United. He's the captain, but he's a completely different captain to what we experienced when we was watching Roy Keane on the pitch. Do you know what I mean? He was there dragging the team along. It was only possible for them to win sometimes through his pure will, just dragging the team, going, right, everyone up, everyone do this. If you're not pulling your weight, then those people are getting blasted. But they wouldn't just sulk, they would get into it, because if they didn't, they knew you got to go back in that changing room. You got to see him on the training ground. You got to see him in the stadium. You got to see him all the time. And if it's not him, it's Fergie. Like, there's no escape from it. Either you pull yourself up to those standards or you get out of the club. And I think there's a lot of players that played alongside Roy Keane in certain squads that were just like, we're going to melt in front of this. But he did his best to even keep the younger players coming through. You hear a lot of the younger players talk about when they were coming through, class of 99 as well, 92, sorry, that, they were talking about coming through in the squad, how much Roy Keane was helping them. Not in a, oh yeah, come on, here you go, do this. In that brutal, get this done, and that's how you survive at Manchester United. And that's how, obviously they had decent careers out of it as well. But I think just the final word on this, unless anyone else has got something to say about him. Well, in fact, let me ask you all one question here. Roy Keane, we just said about him being a complete midfielder, right? Not a 6, not an 8, complete midfielder. In this day and age, 2025, I'll go with you first, Paul. How much is Roy Keane worth?
Well, if Florian Wirtz is worth 130 million, you double it, don't you? He would be the best midfielder in the world by far right now, because the standards are nowhere near Roy Keane. So he'd be priceless. Let's put it that way.
But if you was going to put, so you're saying, because I actually want to figure here, 230 mil. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you've got Isak and Wirtz are worth over 100 million, you're talking 250 million for Roy Keane. 21-year-old Roy Keane would see, you get him for 15 years. The best midfielder in the world, can do everything. Wow. Yeah. 250 million.
Ethan, what are you saying?
I completely agree with Paul. I don't know. I was
250? 250 then?
I think just circle around to 300.
Well,
So
yeah.
it's just
If-
round it, get it rounded up. Do you know what?
If-
I'm not
if-
even disagreeing. I'm not even disagreeing.
Is that if the believer I saw at weekend was worth 100 million? Well, then you might as well call it 500 million. that's the
Yeah.
price.
Ahmad, I'll go with you. You can have the last word on this. How much is Roy Keane worth in today's day? In today's prices.
The player, like in today's time, I'm not saying he's even close to Roy Keane's level, but the player that can do everything, in my opinion, is Declan Rice. Like he's a player I can compare him slightly to. And he went for 105 million pounds. And if you go back to that 2 or 3 years ago, and you asked any other club to pay 150 after seeing how he's been the past 3 years, they would have paid it. So if Declan Rice is worth that, yeah, I think Roy Keane is worth like I would say realistically, I think 180. Like I'm being realistic, but 180, yeah, you would pay that for.
I would say, and I know I said you'd have the last word, but I'm gonna do it anyway. There's nothing you can do about it. But I'm gonna say he if he was still playing now and still in his prime, he'd be the first £200 million player easily. If anyone was to come in, Real Madrid would break the bank for him. He wouldn't go to somewhere like PSG. He'd go to a big club. Real Madrid would do anything and everything, move heaven and earth for him, and I think they'd get him for 200 million. So anyway, welcome number 2 to Fergie's Gum Hall of Fame. But he'll always be number 1. Roy Keane, everyone. Roy Keane. It's that time of the month where we induct a new Manchester United player into the Fergie's Gum Hall of Fame. We've had Eric Cantona, and we've also had... Oh, who was the other player?
Roy Keane.
It was Roy Keane.
Legend.
I was testing you. I didn't forget.
Of course you was. Of course you was.
Making sure. But this person that's being inducted today is, well, the very definition of a one-club man. He won the lot between his debut in 1990 and his retirement in 2014. 13 Premier League titles, 4 FA Cups, 4 League Cups, 9 Community Shields, 2 Champions Leagues, 1 UEFA Super Cup, 1 Intercontinental Cup, 1 FIFA Club World Cup. 963 appearances for Manchester United, which is the most for Manchester United ever. 161 goals in that time, puts him 7th on the United's all-time scorers list. He's got 632 assists for Manchester United. That's 239 more than second place Wayne Rooney. 162 assists in the Premier League, which puts him top of that in the Premier League era. And he also holds the prestige for being the oldest player to ever score at the Olympic Summer Games. We can only be talking about this man.
A rather weary one from Vieira. Giggs gets past Vieira, past Dixon, who comes back at him. It's a wonderful run from Giggs! Sensational goal from Ryan Giggs in the second period of extra time. He's cut Arsenal to ribbons, and the team with 10 men go back in front 2-1.
It's not lost on me there, but he said the team of 10 men come back to win 2-1 in that famous FA Cup semi-final. We could have done with a bit of that at Everton at the weekend, but of course we're talking about Ryan Giggs. He's missed out on the official Premier League Hall of Fame. He hasn't been inducted into that yet. I'm sure there's reasons for off-pitch stuff that he may or may not have been involved in, but he's definitely going into the Fergie's Gum Hall of Fame. We shall overlook it in favour of the fact that he is a Manchester United legend. What a player, right, Paul?
Brilliant, wasn't he? He was brilliant. He's the reason we all fell in love with wingers, isn't he, Ryan Giggs? He's literally the reason why we at United love wingers. Ability, agility, pace, confidence. He started when he was 17, didn't he? I mean, you say 1990 was his debut when it.
Yeah.
So He's throughout my youth, he was an ever present all the way through to adulthood. And he was always there, always played, always produced. Like you said, when you go through what he's won, it's unbelievable. Nobody will get close to that. Nobody will even touch what Ryan Giggs achieved. Whether, like you say, whether you like him as a person, that's a completely different what we're talking about here. But what he was, his pace was the same when he had the ball. Normally, because he was lightning, Ryan Giggs, when he first came through. But he could run with the ball at exactly the same pace. And fullbacks hated playing against. The night before, they must have got zero sleep. Cross the ball, winger on the right side. He was left-footed, playing on the left-hand side, which I don't know about you, Nathan, but these inverted wingers cutting in and crossing and shooting does my... No, cross the ball, please. Do that. You can't say any more about how good he was, other than I can't think of an out-and-out winger ever that was as good as Ryan Giggs.
I think that's a fair point. I think that is a fair point. He also, as part of that, and you touched on it then, running with the ball as quick as he did without it was a trait that most wingers just can't do now. Most players can't do now. But the interesting part about it was that he wasn't this like Ronaldinho style tricks here and there to get past players. It was a drop of the shoulder, a slight of his like body movement, and the players were gone. And it obviously, Sir Alex Ferguson coined the famous phrase, and to quote it directly, he says, when Ryan runs at players, he gives them twisted blood. They don't want to be defenders anymore. Which is fair enough, because they were bamboozled by the way that he used to run at them. He could go direct if he wanted to, get to the byline and get that cross in there. And it was always pinpoint accuracy as well. You don't get 632 assists without that type of pinpoint accuracy. And it's something that the modern day football we don't seem to have that anymore. Running off the ball, top speed, and being able to get that ball into the box just seems to be a dying art. That's what I would say. But Ahmad, I mean, you weren't even born in 1990, were you? Or were you?
No.
You weren't,
No.
were you? You
No,
weren't. So
no.
you missed his debut. What do you remember about Ryan Giggs then?
Yeah, honestly, like mostly I caught the years when he moved back into midfield. Because when I started watching United, it was like around 2007, 2008, and he was in and out of the team, playing as a winger that period. But then when he moved into midfield, then that's when he started playing more and more. And honestly, whenever I watched, I don't think I appreciated how good he was, because I was still like new to watching football. I didn't really understand everything. But what I can say, like the thing that stuck with me the most was 2013. So 2013, there were two games when I was like, that's insane what I was watching. First of all, it was the when we were losing to West Ham in the FA Cup. I think it was away, and Van Persie came on like the last 10 minutes, and Giggs played that ball, that insane pass to him, and then Van Persie just also the finish and control was amazing, but that pass was insane because it was last minute. You know, you had to get it perfectly, and so you're talking about a winger who has that quality to play that pass. But the thing that stuck with me the most was his performance against Real Madrid at Old Trafford. That was insane. That was insane. Honestly, when you think about it, he was 40 years old, playing center midfield against Luka Modric, against Kaká, against Cristiano, and he was running the whole game. He was literally controlling the game. At 40, he was putting in tackles. He was covering ground. He was playing those passes. He was tracking back. He was doing everything. And you're 40 years old. You're not supposed to be doing that. But yeah, like that just shows how professional he is. And another thing, because you guys touched on it, I don't get why when people talk about the best player in Premier League history, Giggs never seems to be mentioned for some reason. And I always say that, like, how can you not mention Giggs? He literally has 13 Premier League. He is the Premier League. Like, for me, he is, like, along with Cantona, for example, they are the Premier League. Like, these players, they made what the Premier League Premier League what it is right now, and he's just underrated. And I do think it has to do with what happened off the pitch, but I don't think he's appreciated enough.
It's 100% what happened off the pitch. I don't think there's any doubt in that. It's very political, and it's one of those things that, like, I'm not going to try and dive into it now. We're just talking about the player as he is, or that we remember, and I don't think he'll ever make it into that Hall of Fame. Just look at the way that he's, Manchester United don't deal with him anymore. He's not really an ambassador for Manchester United anymore in the same way that Paul Scholes might be, Nicky Butt, Wayne Rooney, all of those guys. He's not really part of that setup. But just in terms of the player, and it was something that you were talking about there, Ahmad, there did seem to be two types of Ryan Giggs. And we obviously saw both of them, Paul, where it was the winger that was just that killed everyone, that was flying from left to right, from right to left, all over the pitch, and just left the defenders chasing shadows. And then there was the late 30s Ryan Giggs, who moved into central midfield and was just as productive from that position, which was, when you think back about that, that's crazy. Like, who else has dropped from complete winger? The only other player that you could look at as a comparison, and they didn't have this same thing. But if you look at Gareth Bale, also Welsh, also brilliant in the Premier League. But could you imagine him going into central midfield and playing that type of role? He was instrumental, and it wasn't just he's there to make up the numbers. He was there to win challenges, mark his man, and then, as you say, play by the World Cup winning passes to the strikers up front, and all of these things we kind of miss as fans now of Manchester United, because we haven't got any players that can do either one of those roles. So early teenager to like mid-30s as a winger, and then from mid-30s onwards as a central midfielder, he was better than anyone that we've had. It's difficult to put into words just how good that is.
Yeah, it's a testament to his footballing IQ. There's not many people that will ever be on Ryan Giggs' level of reading the game, playing the game, tempo, how to manage the tempo of a game. And when he moved back into midfield, because he did get there was a period where at United he got a bit of stick from the fans, and that's when he must have realised, I'm going to have to change my game. Sir Alex Ferguson used to play him behind a striker as well a little bit at some games. And then he went into midfield. But yeah, that footballing IQ cannot be overestimated. Underestimated, is that right one?
Overstated.
The things what I remember from Ryan Giggs were, there's obviously the biggest memory which you've already played. I think almost everybody's gonna say that is the main memory with his airy chest out against Arsenal. Absolutely fantastic. But it was more so almost every big game that Ryan Giggs was involved in, derbies, Champions League games, big Champions League games, your games at Highbury, he always produced and was more often than not the best player on the pitch at that high level. And that's one thing you can't say. Ryan Giggs in that United team on that left-hand side was unbelievable. Funny, I mentioned Champions League there. When you go around Europe and you speak to people and you wear your United shirt and things like that, everybody in Europe, older men, 60-year-old men, they all say Ryan Giggs. They all know who Giggs is. Like you said a bit earlier, Ahmad, he's Manchester United. He is Premier League. And everybody loved the way that he approached the game, attacking-wise, creativity-wise. And I think everybody, Real Madrid, Inter Milan, Juventus at the time, they were all linked with going for Ryan Giggs. And I think with him being a one-man club, I think that's the reason why he has to go in to the Fergies Come Hall of Fame.
Do you remember when he almost went to Inter Milan? Do you remember all the speculation that was in the papers about him going?
Yeah.
And it looks like, there's no smoke without fire. I think it was pretty close that they were trying to get him. And Inter Milan also went for Paul Scholes. He was talking about that recently on the Good, the Bad, and the Football.
he was saying that Inter Milan came in for him as well. And it was ridiculous money that they were offering players at the time, because they had those fantastic like tax laws. I say fantastic. They had those tax laws where they could pay these footballers like whatever they wanted. So they were picking up players from all over the place. But Giggs, as you say, he stayed, and he produced from day dot to when he finished. Obviously, he managed Manchester United for a brief period. 2 wins, 2 draws, and a loss, if I remember correctly, towards the end of the 2013 season.
One draw, one loss.
1 draw, 1
draw,
loss,
one
was
loss.
it?
No.
Did he? I thought it was 4 games. No,
4 games, yeah. 2 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss.
Give it
2
Giggsy
wins,
to
1
end the
draw, 1 loss.
season.
Yes, yeah. Yes, of course. But my 2 favourite things about Ryan Giggs, the ones that last in the memory, is like beyond the. I knew we'd all mentioned the FA Cup goal. I knew that, so that's why I played it at the beginning. But 2 things. Anyone that has ever watched Ryan Giggs play knows about how he used to tackle people. Sliding in from the
Sliding
side
in.
or from behind, winning the ball, and then getting up with the ball to carry on running in the opposite direction. Poetry in motion. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
Because it was it wasn't aggression. It was I'm taking the ball. Like it was almost like just the technical side of it. It was like wizardry, because you don't see
Finesse.
it that often. Yeah, you don't. It is finesse. You don't see it that often where he's like a player running down the side. Right now, they tend to either stick a toe out and miss it, and then the player's gone, or they foul him like Casemiro does because he hasn't got the legs anymore. but Giggs used to get like alongside them, and you must have had it in your head when you're running down, and you're like, oh, he's at the side of me. I know what's going to happen now, and that humiliation of losing the ball and then watching his ass running back up the other side of the pitch.
He'd
Like,
run
do you know
away
what I
from
mean?
you then, wouldn't he? Oh,
Yeah.
I got to chase him now. Yeah.
Exactly, and more often than not, he'd get away because they just couldn't catch you. And the other thing is, like, one of my lasting memories, or one of the things that made me love like Manchester United and get into playing football and want to be a winger in as well, just the image of him dropping shoulders left and right, big bouffant hair in that gold and yellow kit, the green and gold kit. Like, it's such a classic kit for men of a certain age, that one with the strings on it and everything. But just the way that he used to get up and down the pitch and just running at players, and like, what is this? How's he doing this? How's he keep dropping people? And like you said, defenders they did not enjoy it at all. You'd be having nightmares. You'd be thinking about Ryan Giggs playing against you the following day. And what type of tactics do you put in there? Kick him. And that's it.
There was
And
something.
and he played during an era of the Premier League where kicking was the answer.
Yes.
That was the answer. And to still produce at that level while getting booted up in the air week in, week out, just amazing for me.
There was something we used to do from corners, from when we conceded corners, wasn't there? Ryan Giggs would stay up there, and Peter Schmeichel would get the ball, and this is another reason why we fell in love with counter-attacking as Manchester United fan. Peter Schmeichel would launch a ball 40, 50 yards, and Ryan Giggs would be there. As a defender, that must have been terrifying. You're one-on-one with that lad running at you, and they'd all trip over the feet, wouldn't they? People like, oh, the defenders, because they wouldn't know where to go. He'd turn him inside out. Yeah. Honestly, unbelievable player. Any of you kids out there that are listening to this, go and watch the highlights to see what a real winger looks like.
It's been a while, mate, but it is time to resurrect the Gunners Hall of Fame. I think the last person that we did was Ryan Giggs. We've done Eric Cantona. We've done Roy Keane, I think. Yeah. So we've done 3 so far. It's time to induct our 4th into the Gunners Hall of Fame. I'll give him a little bit of an intro. You probably guess early doors. Manchester United, I'm going to give it away straight away. Manchester United's all-time leading goal scorer, 253 goals in all competitions. Premier League giant, 208 league goals, 3rd highest in Premier League history at the time, and 103 assists He's got an elite output, this man. 16 trophy haul at Old Trafford, including the lot. Premier League, UEFA Champions League, FA Cup, Europa League, and the FIFA Club World Cup. This was a weird one for me, part of a rare English double, one of only 2 Englishmen, alongside current interim head coach Michael Carrick, to win the Premier League, FA Cup, Champions League, League Cup, Europa League, and Club World Cup. Only 2 English players have ever done that, mate. Iconic moments. I mean, we'll get onto those later, but he's a human highlight reel anyway. PFA Player of the Year numerous times, Football Writers Footballer of the Year a couple of times as well, England Player of the Year on 4 occasions, and my new best mate after meeting him last year at his 40th birthday party. It can only be this man.
We heard that Wayne Rooney might be coming off for Manchester United. A little knock in the first half. Now then, here's Rooney! Oh my goodness me! That is one of the strikes of the season! Absolutely brilliant! Fantastic from Wayne Rooney!
Mr. Wayne Rooney, everyone. It had to be, didn't it? It had to be.
What a player. What a player he was, funny. Absolutely brilliant. He's I made a few notes because we said we were going to talk about it, but I was thinking about it last night, and I've put, even though he's done everything that you said there, and he's got all his plaudits, I still think he's underrated. I really do. I think Rooney's the best Premier League striker we've ever seen. And I was thinking, around Europe, around the world ever, there's only one man who's the best striker ever. That's R9. And I was thinking, Rooney's the only one who got close to him. Rooney, at 18 to 23, was a beast, and he would have got in the Galactico team. He would have got in any AC Milan team. He would have got in Pep's Barca team. He would have got in Chelsea's Women Week. He would have got in the Invincibles, and he probably would have been the best player in most of them teams. That's how good Wayne Rooney was. Scored goals, scored every goal, tap-ins, headers, 30 yards, power shots, little dinks, 60 yards, free kicks, could hold the ball up, could play as the 9, as the 10, on the wing, worked hard, tackled back. Brilliant. He could take on 3 players, slot it in the bottom corner, or he could just absolutely hammer it. Honestly, when you think back to what Wayne Rooney did at such a young age, because he peaked early, didn't he? He peaked between 17 and 22, 23. That was his peak. And then he had to change his game after that because he was playing football from so young. And he probably didn't look after himself as much as he probably should have done, really. But at that age, I can't think of strikers, any, apart from R9, like I said, that were anywhere near him. Unbelievable player.
And I think one of the questions that I was going to ask you is, because of the way that he burst onto the scene, as you say, just as a young lad. I'm talking specifically about Manchester United here, but obviously everyone remembers his goal for Everton against Arsenal when he really introduced himself. You know, the commentary about, Wayne Rooney, remember the name. That debut that he had against Fenerbahce, and he scored a hat-trick for Manchester United. I was watching that and I was like, what is going on? Yeah. We've all seen like great players come through at Manchester United before, but this was something completely different. And like you say, it wasn't just the goals. It was the way that he played, and it was just a tiger on the pitch. He wanted everything. And what I was going to ask you is, do you think we'll ever see players like that again? Because I feel like they're overcoached these days, and they don't have this street baller mentality anymore.
No, you said a tiger there. I thought it was more like a bull. He'd run through everything, wouldn't he? He'd take everything. I think they've tried. Rooney was probably difficult to coach at times because he'd be like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going doing that. I'm bored. I'm going getting the ball. And he would get bored, Rooney playing up front. He's, no, I want to be involved. I want to touch the ball. I bet he'd not annoy you because he's one of the best players ever. But if you said do that, he'd be like, no, I'm my own man. I'm going to go and do that. And you're not going to tell me any otherwise. He was just his own man, and he was very strong-minded. And I think, like you say, kids like that nowadays, they'd probably ship him on and go, he's not doing as he's told. But you couldn't do that with Wayne Rooney because he was literally unbelievable. He had the first time I probably thought, wow, because he scored a few goals for Everton and there were the links with United, and it was the Euros. And then the Euros, he scored a few goals for England, and you're like, well, I've never seen anything like this. He'd give it a go. And I've just watched a couple of them then. And then when he bullied Lilian Thuram, absolutely bullied him, one of the best defenders in the world, and the France team didn't know what to do with him on his own. He just bullied him, and you're like, this kid's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I think what a lot of people, this is why I said I don't think he gets the props that he probably deserves, Wayne Rooney, is because you think of the players that he was playing against. You think of the defenders, the likes of John Terry, Paolo Maldini, the top defenders, Sergio Ramos, around, because that's when football was at its peak for me. I mean, maybe that's probably an age thing, but football peaked when Wayne Rooney was at his peak. And that was probably the most difficult time to be a striker. And he stood out up there. It's top player. I can't say how much we could love a player like that nowadays.
It's and again, like just going back to the point that I was making, yeah, we do love a player like that, but it is rare that those types of players come through. Like I can't think of anyone that is like a maverick style player like this. Eden Hazard was another one that that used to play in that street ball where that he can do what he wants type of way. Don't really see that anymore. There always seems to be a formula in how these players play. But Wayne Rooney, you just felt like he could do everything. You didn't feel like, oh, if you put him if he was defending a corner, you'd expect him to head it out. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like he's going to be in the wrong place or he's going to mess up. If you played him in midfield, you'd be like, right, okay, he's going to do something here as well. Played him up top. He just wants the ball. He just wants to play. And I would say any young kids that or any parents that are listening to this podcast and you've got young kids that are getting into football, don't bother showing them highlights of Vinny Jr. or Lamine Yamal, and because that is coached within an inch of their lives. Like they might do little flicks and tricks every now and again, but Rooney could do that, but with actual conviction and an end product at the end of it. And he wouldn't get caught up in this little falling to the floor. He probably had a few dives over the years, but he wanted, if you wanted a battle with him, he was ready for it. And he was, I know we described Diego Leon as this, but he was like a can of Spam. He's just built like solid, low center of gravity, beautiful touch on him. I likened him to like like those dangerous dogs that get banned in the UK. They can look like friendly and stuff, but you just know that at any moment they could turn on you. And that's what I felt about Wayne Rooney. And I think that's what scared a lot of defenders. They didn't know what they were dealing with that day. Is he going to shoot from 25 yards? Or is he going to power past me and take me on like an R9, as you say? Pop it in the bottom corner. And it's for me, when I was looking back at the clips, obviously that Newcastle United one, where he scored that volley in the Stretford end, that came off the back of arguing with the referee. And on the earlier part of that commentary, it's, we're hearing that Wayne Rooney might be coming off. He's just taken a knock, so we're hearing he might come off. And then he pulls that out of the bag. That's that type of mentality of just, the shot was pure anger, but it was on target and it was directed into something absolutely productive and that had a finesse to it. You don't see that much these days, do you? It's few and far between.
He's just on that goal, he spoke about Rooney and he said what he was annoyed at with the referee is Alan Shearer was trying to referee the game and he was fuming at the referee letting Shearer and wallop, have that, get that. Yeah. I'm going off now anyway. Do you know what, that determination and anger, it's probably, because he's a Scouser, comes from Liverpool, it probably comes from where he's brought up and his family, and because he's from a council estate, and that's probably, we all probably relate to him a lot, especially we're from council estates, and that brings you up a certain way. You have to be tough. You have to be able to look after yourself. You have to have a certain determination about yourself. For him to get where he was, to get to where he got, it takes a certain amount of determination, and that probably put him in a good stead when he was younger to be like, no, I'm determined. I want to win. I'm going to show you what I'm all about. A lot of people, we kind of, I don't think they forget that he's a Scout, but Manchester and Liverpool, even though there's that hatred, there's still a bit of respect because we're quite alike, really. It's like a bubble of no, we don't have a lot of money. We don't do this. What we do, we love football. We absolutely love football, and we love our own. And when he came to United, oh, Scouser at Manchester United. How's this going to work out? Well, hat-trick on your debut always helps, doesn't it, Nathan?
Yeah, hat-trick on your debut really does help. The first game ever in the Champions League as well, wasn't it, for him? I mean, first game for United, first game in the Champions League, like loads of records broken on that night, but it was that one that really introduced him onto the world stage. I know he'd had that goal against Arsenal, as I said before, left Seaman, clutching at air when he popped it into the top corner. But it was that hat-trick against Fenerbahce when it was like, wow, this kid is special. What is your favourite Wayne Rooney moment? Because I was actually in the Stretford end watching that game when he scored against Newcastle. So I was behind the goal when that went in, and I couldn't believe that it had gone in. And I don't think anyone else could that was there. But I'm fairly certain the Newcastle fans couldn't, or the Newcastle players, because that was unreal.
Favourite Rooney moment? There's so many, isn't there? It's got to be the overhead kick against City, I think. I think it has to be because City were on the come up there, weren't they? And yeah, there was just a little bit of old at the creeping, and then for him to score the overhead kick, give it the old in the corner like that. Yeah, he had that many, Rooney. He had that many moments that were important, but he had you could probably talk about 20 of his goals that were standout. One for me, the City one, and the Newcastle one, that they're there, aren't they? The way you go, so memorable. Brilliant.
Yeah, the West Ham one from the halfway line.
Yeah. That's what. When I put he can score all types of goals, he did, didn't he? On the regular. Yeah. I think when he went and played up front, he probably showed more discipline than when he went on as the number 9. Right, I'm going to stay here. And he stayed in between the sticks, and he scored 20 odd goals that season, Premier League goals. And yeah, I think he has come out himself and said how he didn't enjoy it. Just bored. I want to get involved. He wants to clatter people, and he wants to touch the ball. And he wants to absolutely nail someone. And he'd leave it on every fullback. You're a fullback clearing the ball. You see Rooney running over at pace. But he must have been 14 stones solid. And run into your feet. Oh no, that's gonna work. But you can imagine Wayne Rooney, if he lost at anything, he'd lose his rag, wouldn't he? Anything, you playing cards with him, he'd sit at the table. I'm not playing this anymore. I'm going. It's just that kind of guy. Don't want to lose at anything at all. Play Uno, smack me in the face, have
that. I should have asked him that. Maybe I'll ask him next time he's out. If he just fancies a game. Fancies
it's
a
just
quick game
that
of Uno.
type of personality. That type of personality hates losing at anything. Not just with football.
And I think one of the reasons why he ends up in the Hall of Fame, in the Gunners Hall of Fame, is because we don't have those players anymore. And he really feels like, apart from Zlatan, I think that, and maybe even Bruno to a certain extent, but not. I mean, Bruno never shirks a fight. I'll say that. But he never backs out of it. He's always there, whether it gets him a red card or not. But we've been starved of that type of player that grabs the game by the scruff of the neck and goes, right, we're winning this. Too many soft lads playing for Manchester United that just don't grab the game by the scruff of the neck. And you cannot throughout his career, you cannot say that Wayne Rooney wasn't the first one that tried to do something to get the game going. He obviously had his down, his at the moments where he dropped off his performances, and he had his moments back in, when was it? Was it 2010 that he tried to move to City or Chelsea or wherever would take him because he said that the club lacked ambition, and he had a point at the time. He really did have a point. He's come out later and said that he really regrets ever having said that, but at the time he felt like he had a purpose in life and in football, and he felt that Manchester United weren't following that. He felt like they was just letting things just slip by the wayside. And obviously that was the start of the decline because, well, look at where we are now with no money put in by the Glazers, no real ambition when they're buying players. It took Ineos to come in and buy Benjamin Sesko, Brian Mbeumo, and Matthias Cunha to show a bit of impetus. But did that leave the fact that he was having these conversations with City and with Chelsea, did that leave a little bit of a bad taste in your mouth at the time? I'm not talking about We don't have to rewrite history now and say, "Oh no, it's fine." But did it leave a bad taste in your mouth at the time?
Yeah, it stung, didn't it? Your best player at the time. It did sting, and you're like, oh, what are you doing? You can't do that. Yeah, it wasn't. And you can imagine the players that were there as well. Also, going, what are you doing? But like you said, you had a point, didn't it? If you've gone from Ronaldo, Tevez playing around you, and then they brought in Michael Owen and Antonio Valencia. We were all like, what are you doing? You need to replace them players. Go and get the best players. And we weren't at the top table for getting the best players. And Rooney was the best player. So he'd be looking around going, I want to play with players that are as good as me. I don't have to, I want to go with the best players. So, you know what? He showed ambition, showed determination to win. And I'm all for that. At the time, like you said, you felt a bit sick if thinking he could end up in a blue shirt, either blue shirt. But in hindsight, he's probably right, wasn't he?
I think, it definitely was right. You know, when you were talking about like looking back at the highlights and looking back at the goals that he'd scored and things like that, and feeling like he's underappreciated. I get whenever there's like a package that comes out of like great goals and great Premier League players, I feel like there's a recency bias that kind of forgets those players from back in the day, the Shearers, the Henrys even. Rooney's definitely one of them because he's on the BBC Sport and because he's doing the punditry and everything now, people just, I think there's a tendency for people to just think, oh, he's a failed manager. You know, they forget about how potent he was as a footballer. They probably remember a few things from like DC United and stuff like that great goal that he set up. Do you remember that one where he chased back 40
Yeah, when he
yards?
chased back.
Took the ball, crossed it in, last minute header, won the game. You know, there's probably a few people that remember him from things like that. But when it comes to dominating players, I would suggest that there's probably a few people that would say Haaland's a better player just because of the recency bias. And again, you're shaking your head, and I completely agree. It's when you look at Rooney's all-round game, the tackling, the passing, the positioning, the goals, the leadership in his later years, everything. He was the complete package, and you don't often get that in footballers anymore. And the best comparison and probably the one that he would love the most is Eric Cantona. You know, that you would go with the flair of Eric Cantona, that aggression that he's got as well. He's the only person that's come close for Manchester United since Eric. Zlatan, yes, but we got him at past his peak. Great player. Named our new cat after Zlatan. And our dog's whose birthday is today. My dog's birthday is today. He's 13. Eric, after Eric Cantona. So yeah, happy birthday, Eric. But these types of characters, I think they come along so rarely that you do remember them fondly. But I don't think the football masses do. I don't think there's enough viable footage that people can clip up and put out there and go, hey, look at this show reel. Because that's how every player gets out there these days.
Literally why I said I thought he was underrated, underappreciated, just because I was trying to, because like I said, we talk about this before and what we're going to do, and I was trying to think of people that were better than him. And that's because I knew it was a big statement coming out saying I think he's the best Premier League striker ever. And then I knew people would say Haaland. Haaland isn't a patch on the football the way Rooney was. Not a patch. Might be a goal scorer, not a footballer. Wayne Rooney was a much better footballer. And then I thought, who else? Henry, Shearer, Aguero. These type of players, Suarez, Torres. Rooney's better than that. Rooney was a hybrid of Henry and Shearer together. It was the pair of them. Rooney was a better footballer than Aguero was. He was top. And you, like I said, only one person, one striker better ever for me, and that's Iron. That's it. So I think that's probably the biggest compliment you can pay Wayne Rooney. The English striker, English player, unbelievable.
Even with the label of striker or forward, I think diminishes his impact on the game because he was the complete package. I know I sound like a broken record, but he was the complete package in everything that you would want from a footballer. you got the feeling that you could play him in any position on the pitch and he'd perform for you. He'd do whatever you was asking him to do because he just loved football so much. So yeah, I do look back and I do wonder if he had taken care of himself in the same way as Ronaldo did, where he would be right now. Would he still be playing? Would he have got bored of the game? I don't know.
Well, he had a 19 season career, which is a really, really long career. And that probably is one of those things, where you said people think of him as the back end of his career. Because like I said, he did peak very, very early. So peak Wayne Rooney is what I'm talking about, where he was probably the best ever in the Premier League. And that longevity, because his game dipped off and he went to centre midfield and he played on the left, and probably is another reason why people think, oh, well, he was just a bit player and he played here and he played. No. Prime Wayne Rooney was the best.